Chak, and with me is Korff. You're welcome to the next episode on the Daily World News Bites. Our discussion right now is focused around weapons of mass destruction. What exactly are WMDs? They were in the news during the Saddam Hussein era, and they've come back in the news now because the half-brother of Kim Il-jung, the ruler of North Korea, has been killed apparently using a WMD. And this is an ointment or oil-like substance that was smeared on his face by actually one or two women at the airport when he was caught by surprise. The Korean leader's brother died within 20 minutes, a painful and agonizing death, which shows how powerful and how lethal the substance was. Cal, you've done some research on WMDs and you're familiar with what happened in Iraq before the US Army invaded Iraq to destroy the WMDs there.
Yes.
Can you tell us something about this weapon that was used to kill Kim Il-jung's brother? And can you tell us something more about WMDs and where exactly they are stocked or stored today and what kind of danger they pose to the world?
Yes, North Korea is probably the country that has the largest stockpile of weapons of mass destruction. A lot of people think of nuclear weapons when they think of WMDs or they think of biological weapons. Those are certain types, but there's also chemical weapons. And what was used to kill his half-brother was VX nerve agent. It attacks the nervous system. To use an analogy, if you use HIT, the bug spray here in India, to spray a cockroach or any insect, it attacks their nervous system. If that type of poison were used on human beings, it would be a war crime. But if we use it on insects, we say it's okay. So what happened is, years ago, North Korea was told by the United Nations to give up their stockpiles of VX nerve agent. They said that they had done that, but then they also said they just kept a little bit left over. Then they said they weren't going to give it up at all. We don't actually know how much they have. We know that it's a little bit less now because they took some out to kill this guy. They did catch the people involved in the assassination, and of course that's the worst nightmare for their dictator. But North Korea has South Korea in the gun sights of its artillery cannons. 1 out of every 3 artillery cannons is loaded with a biological or chemical agent. So if war were ever to go full score or full bore between the two countries and North Korea were to fire on South Korea, 1 out of every 3 artillery rounds, which can even reach Seoul, would be a WMD round, the very kind of rounds that the United States theoretically had invaded Iraq over to try to get Saddam to give up his WMDs, and we know what a disaster that effort was. So this is one of the reasons that North Korea remains belligerent and still in power, because it's not just about a nuclear weapon. It's a lot more complicated than that. Imagine if India had 1/3 of its artillery cannons loaded with WMD shells. It would be a nightmare to try to disarm that country, because just the sheer numbers of shells and artillery units you'd have to take out, not to mention the ones underground, hidden, stored, are almost impossible to just take it out in one strike. The physics are against you that way.
So, apart from North Korea, are there any other countries that still have WMDs?
Well,
Any terrorist organization?
Well, Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State have WMD units, meaning they have departments, as they call them, of people who know how to make crude chemical weapons. What intelligence indicates is that they're really after a dirty bomb. In other words, one of the reasons there have been some attacks on hospital facilities, and they're limiting the distribution of radioactive cobalt to hospitals, is because if cobalt ends up in the wrong hands, you can use it to make a dirty bomb. And the United States, working with the CIA and Mossad, have broken up instances and terrorist cells where they were even going to target London with the dirty bomb. So the dirty bomb seems to be their focus, because even though they're extremely problematical to handle, they do a lot of disproportionate damage. It's psychologically a very terrifying weapon. And they're they're the lesser of a couple of evils, meaning chemical weapons, biological weapons, they have a very finite shelf life. Saddam Hussein, if he had kept his huge arsenal, a lot of those chemicals would have decayed very soon. But a radioactive element can have a half-life of literally thousands and thousands of years, depends on the substance. So their focus has been to come up with a dirty bomb, to try to get radioactive material from any number of sources, from universities or hospitals. And that's why policing this on the international level has been a nightmare. You may know that there have been people smuggling radioactive materials in and out of airports. Even Russian intelligence has busted some of these people because they'll sell it to the highest bidder.
So basically, we know that it was a nerve agent, anti-nerve agent or whatever that killed this man. And the thing that, the first question that comes to my mind is, why weren't the two women who attacked him harmed? After all, they used the ointment to smear it on his face.
Well, it depends. There have been reports that it was inflicted to him by some needles. There's been contradictory reports of the exact method, but it's surprising that he would use VX because there are plenty of poisons that act very fast that he could have used that are so-called legal, quote unquote. Russia has used them a lot, but you must remember even Russia, has been accused by the British government of using radioactive polonium to kill some of Putin's opponents. So I was surprised to see that he would use VX. That's just reckless, beyond the moral issue. It's very inefficient. There's many other ways to do it, and while I don't condone such behavior, it's not a surprise that this blew back in their face because VX is going to raise alarms once the autopsy is done and they find out exactly what killed him. If he had used a different type of poison, the reaction wouldn't be as strong compared to, say, using a listed known WMD, an agent that they were asked by the UN to surrender years ago.
Thank you, Carol. It was very informative. Thank you.
You're welcome.